What if the person who pulls away the most is actually the one feeling the deepest, and their distance isn't rejection, but the quiet beginning of love learning how to stay? Welcome to Distant Soul, a space where we explore the hidden layers of human emotions. Today, we uncover the quiet, complex journey of how avoidant hearts experience love and learn to trust it. Have you ever cared deeply for someone who seemed to pull away the moment things felt too close? Someone composed on the surface, yet quietly carrying something heavy inside? When an avoidant begins to fall in love, it rarely looks like closeness. It often shows up as tension, distance, even contradiction. But if you look beyond the silence, you'll notice something meaningful unfolding underneath. Love is slowly reshaping fear. For someone with an avoidant attachment style, moving from distance to openness doesn't happen all at once. It's subtle, quiet, almost unnoticeable at first. For most of their life, space has been their shield. Independence kept them safe. They learned early on that closeness could lead to pain, unpredictability, or rejection. So when love enters, it doesn't immediately feel comforting. It feels risky. Emotional intimacy disrupts the balance they've carefully built. But when real love begins to take root, something shifts within them. A pull emerges, one that challenges everything they've relied on. At first, this feeling confuses them. It's a mix of desire and fear, drawing them in while urging them to step back. Their instinct is still to retreat, to rebuild distance. But when someone meets them with patience instead of pressure, with consistency instead of chaos, their defenses begin to soften, slowly, carefully. This is where the first real change begins. The person who once stayed guarded starts to reveal small pieces of themselves. Maybe their tone softens when speaking about something personal. Maybe they stay present during a difficult moment instead of shutting down. These moments might seem minor, but for someone who spent years avoiding emotional exposure, they are significant. This transformation doesn't come from being pushed. It comes from within. Love brings them face to face with parts of themselves they've long ignored. The need for connection, the fear of being left, the desire to truly be seen. They begin to understand that closeness doesn't always mean losing control, and connection doesn't always lead to hurt. Still, this realization isn't easy. It feels like a contradiction they're trying to make sense of. They may still pull back at times. They may go quiet or seem distant. But beneath that, something is growing: trust. The fact that they're trying to stay, even when it feels uncomfortable, is already a powerful sign. When they begin to show who they really are, without hiding behind perfection or detachment, it means their walls are starting to shift. They might share thoughts they've never voiced before. They may express emotions in ways that feel awkward or unpolished. Vulnerability doesn't come naturally to them, so it can look uncertain, like learning a new language where every word feels exposed. But if you pay attention, every honest moment, every effort to remain present is their way of saying, "I'm trying." This is how emotional closeness begins for them, not through grand gestures or dramatic declarations, but through quiet acts of courage. They don't fall in love loudly. They fall in love by slowly letting go, by allowing themselves to be seen in ways they once feared. They begin to understand that vulnerability isn't always painful. It can also connect, heal, and build. So when you notice this shift, when someone who once kept their distance starts to show their softer side, it isn't inconsistency, it's growth. It's their heart learning something new, moving away from fear and toward trust. When an avoidant starts to love deeply, they often feel torn within themselves. The part of them that once demanded space begins to clash with a growing desire for closeness. This inner conflict isn't confusion, it's change. It's the breakdown of old patterns that once felt necessary. For a long time, they associated intimacy with danger. Being close meant losing control. Vulnerability felt unsafe. Independence felt like survival. But when a genuine connection begins to awaken something real inside them, those beliefs start to weaken. They begin to pause before pulling away. They notice the gap between what they feel and what they've been conditioned to fear. This shift is quiet. You won't always see it clearly, but it's there, in the way they hesitate instead of shutting down, in how they soften after conflict, in their willingness to stay present even when overwhelmed. Each time they choose connection over distance, they're rewriting something deep within themselves. It's not easy. Their body still reacts as if closeness is a threat. Staying can feel uncomfortable, but they continue because something inside them is changing. It feels like a constant push and pull. One part of them wants to open up, to feel connection, while another part urges them to retreat. Over time, they begin to realize that the walls they built for protection are also what keep them from experiencing what they truly want. They start to see that strength isn't about staying alone. It's about being willing to connect, even when it feels uncertain. This realization can be painful. It means acknowledging that what once felt safe was actually a form of avoidance, not peace. This shift doesn't happen because someone forces it. It happens when they're ready. Love becomes a reflection, showing them both their fears and their potential. And when they begin to understand that closeness doesn't erase them, something changes. They start acting differently, not because fear disappears, but because they found something worth staying for. That's the real turning point. Choosing to remain even when every instinct tells them to leave. This quiet resistance shows up in small ways. Replying instead of disappearing, saying they need space instead of going silent, coming back after conflict instead of pretending nothing happened. These may seem like small actions, but for them, they are meaningful steps forward. They might still withdraw sometimes, but each time they return, it carries weight. It shows they're learning that connection doesn't break them, it supports them, and that realization begins the healing process. Through all of this, love becomes both a challenge and a guide. It brings them face to face with the loneliness beneath their independence, with the connection they've always quietly wanted. And when they begin choosing presence over protection, they're no longer avoiding love. They're growing into it. This process isn't fast, it isn't easy, but it's real. It's a quiet transformation where walls don't fall because someone forced them down, but because they finally chose to open up from within. For someone with an avoidant attachment style, love doesn't arrive with dramatic moments or constant expressions. It appears in quiet, steady ways that are easy to overlook. Their love isn't loud, it's consistent. They may not say much, but they show it through what they do, through effort, reliability, and presence. To understand them, you have to notice the meaning behind their actions. They might remember the small things about you, the details others miss. For someone who values space so deeply, this level of attention is significant. It means they're letting you into a part of their world they usually keep private. They may help in practical ways, show up when needed, or simply be there without making a scene. These actions might seem ordinary, but for them, they carry real meaning. They express love by being steady, by creating a sense of calm and reliability. And in their own quiet way, that consistency is how they say, "I care." Consistency feels safe to them because it's a form of closeness they can handle. It allows them to stay connected without feeling like they're losing themselves. Big dramatic displays of affection can feel overwhelming, even exposing. So instead of chasing emotional intensity, they show care through dependability, through quiet support that doesn't demand attention. You might notice they begin to let you into their daily life in small ways. They include you in routines, share little pieces of their world. That's their version of an invitation. It's how they say, "You matter enough to be part of my space." Words don't come easily to them. They've learned to be careful with what they express because too much honesty can feel like vulnerability they're not ready to hold. But this doesn't mean their feelings are shallow. If anything, they often feel more than they can explain. Their silence isn't emptiness, it's protection. So when they start opening up, even in small ways, it matters. A story from their past, a quiet confession, a moment of insecurity. These aren't casual shares. They are signs of trust forming. Each word is like a brick being removed from the walls they built around themselves. Their love can also look contradictory. After a deep or emotional moment, they may suddenly pull back. That distance isn't a lack of care, it's their system trying to process the intensity. Closeness can feel overwhelming, and they need space to recalibrate. But when they're truly falling in love, there's one key difference. They come back. They don't disappear completely. They return after the silence, because the connection they're building is starting to feel stronger than the fear that once drove them away. Love for them becomes a rhythm, moving closer, stepping back, then returning again, each time staying a little longer. You may also notice a quiet form of protectiveness, not possessive, but thoughtful. They begin to consider how their actions affect you. They check in more, follow through on what they say, and try to be consistent even when it feels uncomfortable. Keeping their word becomes meaningful. It represents stability, something they once hesitated to offer, but are now learning to give. For them, commitment starts to shift in meaning. It's no longer about losing freedom, it becomes about trust. Understanding how they love requires patience and awareness. Their affection doesn't announce itself loudly, it shows up in steady presence, in effort, in reliability. Where others may express love through words, they express it through action. Where others seek constant closeness, they offer consistency. They don't overwhelm you with attention. They show up when it matters most, often in ways you didn't expect. And while their love may seem subtle, it carries a depth that's hard to replicate. Because every gesture they make is intentional. Every step closer is a quiet act of courage. When an avoidant pulls away, it can feel like rejection. But underneath that distance is often fear, deep, complicated fear. To truly understand them, you have to look beyond their behavior and into the experiences that shaped it. Many learned early on that closeness came with pain. Love may have been inconsistent, controlling, or unreliable, so they adapted. They taught themselves that depending on others wasn't safe. That distance meant protection. This fear doesn't go away when they fall in love. In fact, it can grow stronger. The more they care, the more exposed they feel, and what looks like indifference is often a response to that vulnerability. It's not that they don't feel, it's that they feel too much and it overwhelms them. They fear being consumed by intimacy. Deep connection can feel like a threat to their independence, the very thing they rely on to feel safe. So they may move closer, then suddenly pull away, not because their feelings change, but because the intensity became too much. Their mind tells them distance will restore balance, that stepping back will protect them from potential hurt. But this creates a painful cycle, because while they retreat to feel safe, they also long for the connection they're pulling away from. This inner conflict becomes even stronger when they truly love someone. On one side, there's a deep desire to be understood, to feel close. On the other, there's fear of losing themselves, fear of being overwhelmed, fear of getting hurt. Their fear isn't of love itself, it's of what love might cost them. So when they feel deeply attached, they instinctively create space. It's their way of managing the vulnerability that comes with connection. That's why they may go quiet after a meaningful conversation or seem distant right after showing affection. It's not their heart shutting down, it's their system trying to cope. The difficult part is that this fear often hides how much they actually care. They believe they're protecting themselves, but in doing so, they also keep themselves from the closeness they truly want. But when they meet someone who understands this, someone who doesn't interpret their distance as disinterest, but as fear, something begins to shift. Slowly, they start to soften. They begin to see that closeness doesn't have to erase them. It can exist alongside who they are. This realization takes time because their fear isn't logical. It's rooted in past emotional experiences. What helps them move through it is not pressure, but safety. Real emotional safety, the kind that is consistent, not demanding. When they see that they can take space without losing connection, the fear begins to ease. They start to feel that love doesn't require them to abandon themselves. That needing someone doesn't mean they'll disappear, and this is where healing begins. Their fear of intimacy is at its core, a fear of being hurt again, a fear of reliving something they've already survived. But when they begin to feel safe enough to stay, even while afraid, that's when love starts to change them. What once felt like a wall begins to turn into a bridge. Silence becomes a form of quiet trust. Fear slowly transforms into courage. The courage to remain open, even when vulnerability still feels unfamiliar. Patience is what makes this possible. For someone who has spent years avoiding closeness, patience isn't just kindness, it's transformative. They don't move slowly because they don't care. They move slowly because what they feel runs deep. Every step toward connection feels uncertain. They need time to trust that love won't turn into control or chaos. Patience shows them that they don't have to rush, that they can be accepted as they are. When someone leaves, the moment they begin to open up, it reinforces their deepest belief that closeness always ends in loss. But when they're met with patience instead of rejection, something new begins to form. They start to see that love can stay even when they struggle, even when they pull away, even when they're not perfect. Patience doesn't mean ignoring your own needs. It means understanding that real emotional change takes time, that growth isn't linear, that someone learning to trust love will move forward, then back, then forward again. To someone unfamiliar with this, it can feel confusing, but within that movement, there is progress. Every return, every effort to communicate, every moment of openness, no matter how small, is a step forward. Patience creates space for that growth. It allows them to experience love without fear of being rejected for their imperfections. And in that space, something shifts internally. They begin to understand that they don't need to protect themselves in the same way anymore. Through consistent care, they start to experience love differently, not as a threat, but as something steady and safe, and slowly they begin to believe it. They see that connection doesn't mean losing freedom, that they can be close and still be themselves, that love doesn't have to take, it can also give. This realization is powerful. It challenges everything they once believed about relationships. Over time, they begin to trust. Not all at once, but gradually. They learn that their space will be respected, that they can step back and still be accepted, that their presence alone is enough. This kind of trust can't be rushed. It has to be built through consistency and understanding. When patience is present, love stops feeling like something they have to defend against. It becomes a place they can return to, and as they begin to feel that, they change. They become more open, more gentle, more willing to stay, not because they're forced to, but because they want to. They begin to reflect the same patience they were given. And in that space, connection deepens naturally. It's never about fixing them. It's about allowing them the time to see that they were always worthy of love. And when that realization settles in, love becomes what it was always meant to be, a place of safety, not fear. When you truly understand an avoidant heart, you stop misreading their distance as lack of care. You begin to see that every effort they make, every moment they stay, every word they struggle to say, every small act of presence is meaningful. For them, love isn't effortless, it's intentional. It's a daily decision to move toward connection instead of away from it. They are learning that closeness doesn't take away their freedom, that trust doesn't mean control, that vulnerability isn't weakness, it's strength. Their transformation isn't loud, it's quiet, steady, and real. It shows in the way they stop running, in the way they begin to move closer, even if their steps are uncertain. And when you notice that shift, when their walls begin to soften, when they start to truly see you, don't walk away. That's not confusion, that's love. Not the absence of fear, but the choice to stay despite it, because love doesn't just heal those who are open, it also reaches the ones who were once guarded. And when someone who spent their life protecting themselves begins to trust, to stay, and to show up, not out of obligation, but by choice, you're witnessing something rare. A kind of love that isn't loud but deeply real, a love that was never given easily but once given is genuine. A love that begins not in certainty but in awakening. In the end, loving an avoidant heart is not about chasing them or trying to break their walls. It's about understanding the quiet battle they fight within themselves. Their journey into love is slow, often confusing, and filled with moments that may seem distant or uncertain. But beneath that surface is a real and growing desire to connect, to trust, and to stay. What makes their love so powerful is that it is never automatic. It is chosen. Every time they open up, every time they return after pulling away, every time they allow themselves to be seen, they are stepping beyond fear. They are rewriting patterns that once defined their entire sense of safety. And when they finally begin to trust love, not perfectly, but honestly, it becomes something rare. A love built not on impulse, but on courage, not on dependency, but on balance, not on illusion, but on truth. So if you ever witness an avoidant choosing to stay, choosing to soften, choosing to let you in, understand what you're seeing. It's not hesitation, it's transformation. Because when someone who spent their life protecting their heart finally decides to share it, that love carries a depth that only comes from awakening. If this spoke to you, make sure to like, subscribe to Distant Soul, and hit the bell icon so you never miss a deeper truth. And if you felt this on a real level, comment, "I choose to stay," below.